This is Module 1 entitled Basic Device Configuration. In this module, we'll configure initial settings on a Cisco switch, we'll configure switch ports to meet network requirements, we'll configure secure management access on the switch, and also basic settings on a router between two directly connected networks using CLI, and verify connectivity between two networks that are directly connected to a router. Configure a switch with initial settings. The moment you turn on the switch, it goes into this five-step boot sequence. First, the switch loads and performs this power on self-test, which is stored in the ROM. What happens here is that it will check the CPU, it will check the memory, it will check all the hardware components if they are okay. And next is that the switch will load the bootloader system. This is a small program stored in the ROM that runs immediately after the pause successfully completes. Then the bootloader will perform low-level CPU initialization. Then the bootloader initializes the flash file systems on the board and locates and load the default iOS operating system, which is the operating system of the Cisco devices. And this gives control of the switch over to the iOS. I have here the syntax of the boot system command. So boot system, say like for example in here you want to load the iOS in the flash, and then you have here the specific file name of the iOS. If you want to recover from a system crash, first thing to do is to connect a PC by a console cable to the switch port, then configure the terminal emulation software to connect to the switch. Then you unplug the switch power cord, then reconnect the power cord to the switch and wait for 15 seconds. Press and hold down the mode button while the system LED is flashing green. And then continue pressing the mode button until the system LED turns briefly amber and then solid green. And then release the mode button. Then you will see a switch colon prompt which appears in the terminal emulation software in the PC. The bootloader command line supports command to support the flash file system and reinstall the operating system software and recover a lost or forgotten password. In order for you to configure the switch, you need to connect a console cable from the PC going to the console port of the switch. And one major configuration you need to do is to set an IP ad on the switch in the SVI. SVI, we call it as the switch virtual interface, and its default is VLAN 1. Set up an IP ad there in a way for you to remotely access the switch. So the SVI configuration. So again, very important to set up an IP ad on the switch, and we do it in VLAN 1. Okay, so it is recommended to change it. Okay, like in this case, for example, VLAN you change the SVI instead of VLAN 1, change it to VLAN 99. And this is the configuration. So you type interface VLAN 99. You do it in the global configuration mode. And then this is where you set up the IP address, and then the IP ad you are to set, and then the subnet mask. You may also set an IPv6 address on the SVI, and you have the syntax here. And then you activate the SVI by typing the no shutdown command. Again, the syntax for the IP is IP address, then the IP ad, then the subnet mask. And then save, copy from the RAM. Running config is the RAM going to the the permanent memory in the switch or of the router, which is the NVRAM, which is represented by the startup dash config. Also very important to set up a default gateway in the switch. The syntax is IP default dash gateway, and then the IP ad of the LAN interface of the router. To verify status, specifically layer 1 and layer 2, we type show IP interface brief. This one again checks layer 1, example if the cable are okay. And this protocol here refers to layer 2 protocol. The equivalent of this in IPv6 is show IPv6 interface brief. This is layer 1 and this is layer 2. Configure switch ports. There are duplex mode. Full duplex again is like a switch is in full duplex mode. A hub is in a half duplex. So switch also has a net auto negotiate. So let's say if you have a switch and you connect a hub, you connect a hub. So usually a hub has only one arrow. Automatically it will work. No, hub is in half duplex, and then what happens? This port over here on the switch, it will become half duplex. So in a way, the switch can connect directly and automatically on the hub. So there, but if you want to like, yes, force the a port to a full duplex or half duplex, there's a command for that. Duplex half and duplex full. There's also the speed command if you want to manipulate the specific speed of a port. For example, let's say a port of a switch has this, meaning that port can support a 10 Mbps, a 100 Mbps, and a 1000 Mbps. So maximum, let's say, is 1000 Mbps. You only want to have speed on that port at 10 Mbps. So you may type speed and then 10. Okay, so that's the syntax. So this is the syntax, yes, speed and then this value over here which is in Mbps in megabits per second, and then for the duplex and then full or half. By default it's full. Auto-MDIX is the feature of the switch where it automatically adjusts to the cable type. So meaning, say, usually say if you have switch to switch, we use a crossover. But if a switch has auto-MDIX and by default it's enabled, and if it is enabled, then if you only have a straight through, yes, you can use a straight through connecting a switch to a switch if it has, again, an auto-MDIX feature. Okay. If in case it's disabled, the command to type is MDIX auto. And these are the different show commands that a switch has. Okay, um, show version to display details that the switch has. To display previous commands is show history. To display contents in the flash memory is show flash. To display the running or the active configuration is show running config. To identify if there is already a saved configuration, you may check the startup config by typing show startup-config. We already mentioned about show IP interface brief. Now, if you want to have a much more detailed um, information in the interface, you may type show IP interface. And if you want to check the MAC address table, we type show MAC-address-table. This is an example of the output for the show running config. And here we have the show interface. We check, example, very important details are the layer 1 and layer 2 status and the MAC address I have here. Okay, and then a couple of details with the MTU, the bandwidth that this port has, the delay, reliability, and then the transmit and receive load. And this ends this part of Module 1. I'd like to thank you for listening. Keep safe. Together we learn as one.